The CDC tells us when we can take off our masks. President Biden prepares to address Congress, and the biggest public health breakthrough of the decade has nothing to do with coronavirus. Wednesday Need to Know. Let's go. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for Wednesday, April 28th. I am Jill Wagner with Carlo Versano. Hi, Carlo.
Jill, good morning to you. It's going to be 80 degrees in New York City today. That's that time of the year when it goes from spring to summer, just overnight. But if you need me, if anybody needs me, I'll be in my new backyard hanging out on my chair that I just bought. I'm very excited about that.
There is nothing like outdoor space when you live in the city.
Oh my God, I have never had it before, and it's already a game changer.
Even if it's like 5 feet, even if it's just room for one chair, like the fire escape, it's still matter. Something.
It's something.
Okay, the CDC's put out some updated guidance on mask wearing, which is as follows. Fully vaccinated people can stop wearing masks outdoors unless they're in a large crowd of strangers. Unvaccinated people can stop wearing masks when they're walking or exercising outdoors alone, or while attending outdoor gatherings with fully vaccinated friends or family. Everyone should still wear masks in crowded outdoor settings or anytime they're doing something indoors that involves contact with people outside of their household. The relaxed rules come as cases in the U.S. have dropped by more than 20% in the last 2 weeks, and more than half of adults in this country are now at least partially vaccinated.
I was happy to see this yesterday from the CDC. The question that I would ask the head of the CDC, if I could, is what are they doing to reach the hesitant or the inaccessible people in terms of the vaccines? And what are we doing about the 20% or so of 65 plus people who have not been vaccinated? To me, that's what this is all about, this next phase. So, look at Oregon, for instance. The state is moving 15 counties to the extreme risk category while noting that there is more than enough vaccine in that state to go around. So, I remember a couple of weeks or a couple of months ago, we sort of compared this period to like a really bumpy landing on a plane. I think that's what you're starting to see now. But generally speaking, things are going well, Jill. Things are going well. I mean, we have 24% case decline in the last 14 days. That's really good. That's really good. And if you were just sort of paying cursory attention to the news, which is how most people consume news, they don't, spend a lot of time on it like we do. I don't know if you would know that. I don't know if you would know that I don't know if you'd think that we're still in the midst of like a national surge in cases.
So Nate Silver, statistician, he said, quote, on Twitter, he wrote, given how much was written about a relatively modest increase in COVID cases in the U.S. a month or so ago, there should probably be more coverage of the roughly 20% decline over the past 2 weeks, which reflects the power of vaccines, among other things. And I think he's right. And that's why I think all week we've been trying to talk about things are looking a lot better and they're feeling a lot better, too.
Yeah, totally. You can feel it when you're walking around, I think. And I agree with Nate Silver. I mean, I think the banner headline on every newspaper should be the decline in cases, right? We got to remind people this is why you get vaccinated. Chris
Cuomo, on his show last night, he had Andy Slavitt on, and he asked him point blank, why not just let vaccinated people live their lives? Why if you're fully vaccinated and there's basically a 0.001 chance that you're going to get COVID, why are you still putting out these guidelines with mask wearing, indoor, outdoor, blah, blah? And it sounds like Slavitt, he didn't really want to answer, and it seems like he's just, as we pointed out, the CDC moves at a glacial pace. They are overly cautious, and it sounds like they don't want to go too fast and then have to roll something back.
Yeah, right. I mean, remember, the CDC is the same organization that tells you not to eat eggs that haven't been fully cooked, right?
No cookie dough. My childhood would have been a lot different. And my adulthood, for that matter. Who am I kidding? Okay, one place where things are most certainly not going well is in India. Just a couple of months ago, public health officials in India were marveling at their luck as the country seemed to have avoided a massive second wave of COVID cases. Now, more than 300,000 people a day are testing positive. The death toll just passed 200,000. One well-regarded epidemiology institute predicting that the daily case number is close to 14 million. Carlo, I sent that to you yesterday. I was just blown away by that, but it points to this issue of testing, and are
Yeah.
people getting tested?
Yeah, especially in a place like India where there's a lot of people that are unreachable. It's very hard to do an accurate case count, especially I mean, there's a billion people in India, right? I mean, at 14 million, it wouldn't even surprise me if that actually was the number. Look, they're suffering from this sort of perfect storm of factors, which the WHO has noted. Mass gatherings, right? The government has Narendra Modi has never done any sort of national lockdown. There's no real federal response in terms of stay-at-home measures. The country has low vaccination rates, which is sort of ironic because most of the world's vaccine supply is made in India. And also, they're just seeing more these contagious variants, B.1.1.7, the so-called UK variant. That's all over the place there. That's the one that's at least 40% more contagious. So look, it's good that we're sending our AstraZeneca vaccine supply there. But I think we got to be doing more. I think other wealthy countries need to be doing more. I don't even know what more means, but you can't have this in a globalized world, right? Because this is gonna. The worry is that this is gonna roll back some of the great progress that we're making here if one of these mutated variants escapes and breaks through some of these vaccines, right?
What's happening is that the mutations are all they kind of all resemble each other because there's only X amount of ways that the virus can mutate. And so it's similar to B.1.1.7 and similar to the Brazil mutation and the more contagious mutations, but it's not exactly the same. So hopefully they will all somewhat the vaccine will be somewhat effective against them. But just to tell you how bad it is, it seems like it's affecting every single person who is in the country right now. The New Delhi bureau chief of the New York Times, Jeffrey Gettleman, wrote that he's sitting in his apartment waiting to catch the disease. That's what it feels like, that it's only a matter of time, he says, before I too get sick. And I feel like I don't know, did it ever get that bad in New York? I feel like you felt nervous about leaving your house, but I felt like if I followed precautions, I wouldn't really get it.
I don't remember. I mean, God, this time last year was so weird. But I do feel like there was that period where I was like, I almost wanted to get COVID in the beginning because I was like, I'm gonna get it, so let's just get it over. This was before we knew about sort of like the long haul symptoms, and it was like you're gonna get a really bad flu, and then you're gonna get the antibodies. So there was a period in like March and April last year where I was like, it's only a matter of time. Let me just get this thing and get it over with. I'm glad that I managed not to.
I'm glad you didn't go to a COVID party, Carlo, because that would have been a huge mistake.
Yes, it would have.
Okay, President Biden's going to make his first address to Congress tonight. It's technically not a State of the Union because it's in the president's first year, as we mentioned yesterday. The president of the United States is expected to call for more major spending initiatives for domestic priorities like jobs and infrastructure. One thing that we know that he is going to pitch as part of his so-called human infrastructure proposal, free preschool for all 3- and 4-year-old children in the United States. The cost is $200 billion. Security pretty tight at the Capitol. That speech is slated to start at 9 p.m. Eastern.
His 100-day mark, I believe, is Friday, if my counting is correct, which it may not be because that's not my forte. But I'm pretty sure it's either Friday or Thursday or Saturday. Anyway, it's going to be 100 days in the next couple of days, which is a meaningless thing. But it's one of those things in the media that we like to use as like a marker to take stock of a president's, the first part of his term. I have to say, it's pretty notable that the Republican attack lines on Biden, they are just not sticking. Like, if you really think about it, the political battle right now, it's all culture war stuff, right? It's all Dr. Seuss, cancel culture. That is giving cover to Biden to run an extremely progressive policy operation when you think about it, right? I mean, look at this from McClatchy. They analyzed all of the statements and emails former President Trump sent out since he left office. He's mentioned Biden in less than 20% of those statements, which I think just shows you that this Biden he's they called Trump Teflon Don. It's sort of like Teflon Joe, right? And the stuff just doesn't stick to him. And the reason why he's been able to do so much, I think, and become so sort of inoculated against a lot of these attack lines is this. The ironic thing, it's the same reason a lot of Democrats didn't want Biden as the nominee, which is that, he's old, he's bland, he's been around the block, he knows D.C. like the back of his hand. He sort of knows the political, fault lines to avoid, the mistakes to avoid, the people to talk to, the arms that need twisting. And look, if you're a liberal, it is hard to envision a better start to a presidency given the circumstances.
If you care about the pomp and circumstances for tonight's event, usually the full cabinet would be there, minus that one person who's the lone survivor if there was supposed to be a tragedy happened. Tonight, only 2 members of the cabinet will actually be there in person. Normally, the whole Supreme Court would be there. Tonight, just Justice John Roberts.
Yeah, I think it won't be. I don't know what it's going to look like. Actually, I guess they'll just have like a few people in the hall.
I think, I think everyone's there in masks. I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. We'll see. 9:00. Why? Why can't it be 8:00?
Well, I guess because it's, you got the West Coast, Carlo. But everyone's working from home still. Okay, if you've filled up your gas tank lately, you've probably winced at the numbers ticking up on the little screen. The national average for a gallon of gas already flirting with $3 a gallon as summer approaches. And now there are concerns that a shortage of gas is coming. This is fascinating. It's not because there's not enough crude oil. There's plenty. It's because there are not enough drivers to haul the refined product to gas stations. This is fascinating. Really interesting.
So it's basically, there was this shortage of tanker drivers even before COVID. So the pandemic exacerbated that because a lot of, there was less demand for gas. So a lot of these companies had to lay off workers. A lot of these drivers took early retirement because they just weren't needed. But now demand is way back up. And as much as a quarter of tanker trucks are sitting idle, according to the industry group, just because they're having this difficulty finding qualified drivers. The thing to remember here is not anybody can drive a gas tanker, as it should be, right? I mean, I wouldn't want, I wouldn't want you or me behind the wheel of one of those things. It requires a special certification, not just a commercial driver's license. There's a lot of training involved, so they're having a really hard time. This could certainly affect the price of gas as the so-called summer driving season approaches. I filled up the other day, $3.10 in New York City. I should have bought a Tesla.
Speaking of Tesla, 2 of the richest men in the world feuding over who gets first dibs to take the next astronauts to the moon. You have Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin rocket company. They filed an official complaint with the government after NASA awarded a $3 billion contract to Elon Musk's SpaceX to build the next generation lunar lander. Bezos claims NASA moved the goalposts for the bidding at the last minute. Musk hitting back on Twitter saying Bezos, quote, couldn't get it up, in parentheses, to orbit, end quote. I mean, Carlo, can Elon Musk grow up, please? I just, it's so juvenile. Does he not have anything better to do? Like running 2 companies?
Right. Did you guys talk last week? I think you did, about how he's doing SNL next weekend.
Yes, we did. Okay, so a couple of really interesting notes on that. On Cheddar, I interviewed a bunch of analysts so Tesla's earnings came out earlier this week, and they were really, really positive and strong. And a couple of analysts that I had spoken with before the earnings came out said the fact that he was doing SNL led them to believe that the earnings were going to be really good, because they didn't think that he would host SNL after a really bad earnings report, which is pretty fascinating, actually. But a couple of cast members, Bo and Yang, and I forget who, one of the other ones, are kind of annoyed that he's hosting, and they posted a few things to mention that on social media. Those posts have, of course, been taken down. But, I don't
know. I think it's going to be funny. Whatever. Anyway, it's back to the Bezos and Musk feud. It's amazing to me how you can be literally the richest human being to ever live, and there's always someone who you feel like is getting a better deal, right? It's just like a great lesson. It's just like a lesson in the human condition, I guess. But why wouldn't NASA choose SpaceX? They have a rocket that already works. I don't believe Blue Origin is like ready to roll. SpaceX is landing these launchers in right next to each other on landing pads. Like, it's incredible what they're doing. That said, like, I appreciate this sort of burgeoning space industry, and what SpaceX is doing is literally nothing short of remarkable. It truly is, and I don't want to take away from that. But sometimes I just want to tell these guys, like, can you focus all of your money and talent and energy on some of the issues down here on Earth? Because there's no shortage of problems that need solving here.
It's funny you say that. I just watched the documentary, the docuseries 1969. It's on Hulu. And one of the episodes is about Apollo 11 and how it was happening in the backdrop of the civil rights movement. A few days before the launch, a group of about 500 mostly black protesters led by civil rights leader Ralph Abernathy, he was one of MLK's top aides, they protested outside of Kennedy Space Center, arguing that basically the space program was a huge waste of money and that money should be going to solving societal problems. It was something like 1 in 5 black Americans at that time didn't have enough food to eat. So the head of the space program actually came out to meet them. His name's Thomas Paine, and he said, if we could solve the problems of poverty in the United States by not pushing the button to launch men to the moon tomorrow, then we would not push that button. I just thought that was pretty fascinating. Yeah. And he made a comment along the lines of like, what we are doing up in space is like child's play compared to the problems that we have here on Earth. But then he invited 10 of the families to the actual launch. And he said that he hoped that what they're discovering in space could potentially help with progress down here on Earth. But I thought that was at least the right way to especially in 1969, right, where things were a lot worse than they are now. I mean, I just thought that was a model for how to approach
I like that.
things. And look, the point is that the argument that you're making was just as relevant back then, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the difference is, NASA is basically given this over to the private sector. So if that's the case, then we do need companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin and I hate knocking technological innovation because it's truly amazing what they're doing. It's not even them that I have the problem with. It's the Virgin Galactics of the world. It's the people that are spending like what is his name, Branson, who are spending all of this money for like just to fly super rich people to like suborbital space. That to me just seems like a complete waste. Actually sending rockets that are going to building rockets that are going to take astronauts to the moon and potentially Mars. I mean, that is really incredible.
Switching gears, Coldplay has been dropping some cryptic hints about a new project called Alien Radio amid rumors that the band is getting close to releasing its long-awaited 9th album. In a brief clip shared to Coldplay's social channels, a series of purple symbols flashes over the sound of a static radio signal. Fans on social media noticed that the symbols are identical to the ones seen on mysterious billboards that have been popping up in New York, London, and Seoul.
Talk about a hard turn there, NASA to Coldplay. But I did want to put this in because I know we're both Coldplay fans, Jill, and it does look like they are putting out at least a new single in the next week or two. So yesterday I admitted that my favorite movie of all time is Titanic.
I've blocked
Today
that
I admit.
out.
Oh, come on, come on. You're so hard on me. But today I admit one of my favorite bands is Coldplay. That one album, X and Y, I think it was called, that got me through my first heartbreak. So, I'm a normie at heart, and I'm proud of it.
Is Coldplay, would that be embarrassing to admit that they're your favorite band?
I think in some circles.
Really?
I think Coldplay's not cool. They're not cool. They're good, I think, but they don't count as like a cool hip
cool
band.
Now?
Well, that I don't know.
Clearly I'm not, so this is why I'm asking. Who is cool then?
Yes, no, I don't know. I don't know. We need a teenager to write in and tell us.
I will say every time I put on Coldplay, for some reason my husband goes, "Ooh, Coldplay," and I don't know why he says that to me, but perhaps it's all coming together here on this podcast, Carlo.
I think so.
And finally, before we go, we do want to get on the record with a story that's been kind of flying under the radar in the media. Even though this could be nothing short of revolutionary, this is about a public health breakthrough that actually has nothing to do with COVID. Researchers at the University of Oxford, that same team that did help develop AstraZeneca's COVID vaccine, reported last week that their malaria vaccine appears to be 77% effective in African children where they're testing it. If late-stage trials confirm that level, Carlo, it would be the first malaria vaccine to ever reach the World Health Organization's goal of 75% efficacy. Malaria kills 500,000 people a year, the majority of whom are young children in sub-Saharan Africa.
Yeah, this should be getting way more attention, I think, than it is. Talk about something that should be on the front page of every newspaper. And it's true what you said, that it has nothing to do with COVID. That being said, though, they've been at work on this vaccine for years, right, preceding the coronavirus. But the lessons learned from the vaccine drive with COVID will be very important here, especially when it comes to like how do you scale the manufacturing and distribution of a vaccine like this. Malaria, one of the biggest scourges on Earth, right? Seriously, we don't think about it too much here because it mostly affects the poorest people on Earth, which is just not coincidentally why there has not been a huge breakthrough in vaccines for malaria like we had with COVID. No one is pouring hundreds of billion dollars into malaria vaccine research. Bill Gates probably the closest to that, but he sort of stands alone. I just think about this stuff. Like, we are living in a period where we could eradicate malaria and HIV. Those two diseases alone kill more than 1 million people a year. And we're on the precipice of eradicating them. When I'm feeling like down about the state of the world or just about life in general, I think about stuff like this, and it really does. It just makes me so hopeful about humanity and about the progress that we can make.
I love it. All right, let's end it there. I'm picturing you now on your walk outside by yourself without a mask on for the first time.
Rocking out to
Coldplay, thinking about scientists solving the world's problems. Love it.
That's pretty much my life.
For now, just wait. Your baby's coming. Okay, that's what you need to know for Wednesday, April 28th.
Bye, guys.